Assalamu alaikum. Hi everyone. Ladies and gents, what's good people? For those of you who do not know me, my name is Kamran Uddin. Usually I don't tend to do this presentation online, but with the pandemic that's taking place around the globe and the fact that I've not been invited into any places to do any seminars, I took the initiative to make this a virtual content in order to make it easily accessible for all. I'll be also sharing a link on my website. Basically, I'm going to be speaking to you all about my personal experience with the criminal justice system, both as a perpetrator and as a rehabilitated law-abiding citizen. Now, I'd like to start off by sharing a few stories with you. Some of the things which have helped me develop my character both in my professional and personal life over the years. Just like everyone else, there are several chapters to this story, so for the sake of time, I'm going to keep it short and brief. Let's start off with one of the most famous quotes in the entire world. Don't judge a book by its cover. I'm sure that most of you have heard of this phrase or you've actually used it at some point in your life, but I just wanted to go into some detail on this. Now look, not everybody in life that you see is an open book, and sometimes people are just not given the opportunity to express themselves in order for external people to understand. For that reason, we end up subconsciously judging people based on their front cover, hence the expression, first impressions count. In fact, I can guarantee within the first 30 minutes of me walking into this room or you clicking on this video or looking at my website or wherever, or even speaking, most of you have already come up with assumptions about me. Look, doing this is natural, but staying in this mind frame is what closed-minded people do. Allow me to demonstrate with an example. Here on the left is what I used to look like back in 2011. To put it into perspective, when people judged me during this phase of my life, they labelled me all sorts, from criminal, drug dealer, gang member, thug, womanizer, cheat, player, thief, the list goes on. I recently watched a TED Talk which hosted a psychiatrist and a leading brain disorder specialist by the name of Dr. Daniel Amen. He enlightens us with some powerful words. I quote, "Behavior is an expression of the problem, but it's not the problem." For me, I could personally relate, but nobody ever knew that or understood my situation. Why? Because I never got to express myself. Moving on, and this man here on the right is called Tim Isherwood. He's a graphics design lecturer at Salford University, happily married with kids, a great example of what a family man is supposed to be like. We had never met before, but come August 2011, our separate worlds were destined to collide. Tim was a victim of an unprovoked violent attack caused by him on the left. So violent that the impact of a metal baseball bat to his face left this man hospitalized and in need of some serious medical attention. Just a couple of inches higher towards his temple, and he could have died that night. Now, based on what I've told you, please embrace any negative feelings of disgust, anger, disappointment, or hatred that you might be feeling towards me. In regards to this story, I need you to judge me in the worst possible way before I come back to it later on. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to tell you something which has affected me for years throughout the past. Once upon a time, I was someone who was full of excuses. Whatever type of obstacle, challenge or setback that occurred in my life, I had an excuse ready. All the difficulties, trials, calamities and tribulations that I endured, there was a list of excuses that I could come up with. Even good opportunities and things which could have benefited my life, I had an excuse for hesitating, procrastinating and for not taking any action at all. Here are a few typical examples. I'm not good enough. I can't do it. What if they don't like me? I don't have enough money. I'll do it next week. I don't have enough time, man. Is it because of how I look? These are just a few that I can think of from the top of my head, but there were thousands, and I mean thousands more. If I didn't have an excuse, alternatively, I always had somebody else that I could blame. The reason why I'm mentioning this point is because there's a motivational speaker by the name of Les Brown who made a statement which drilled deep into my core. He said, "Excuses always sound best to the person who is making them up because to them they are valid reasons." This is so true, and from my personal experience, I can't deny these words. Whilst I have this topic at hand, I just wanted to mention that it also reminds me of something that the well-known famous actor Will Smith frequently mentions, is he who says he can and he who says he can't are both usually right. In other words, what he's trying to imply is if two people were presented with the same opportunity or they were both experiencing the same traumatic event or obstacle in their life, and one of them turned around and said, I can't do it. What if I get rejected? Or how am I ever supposed to get over this? Whilst the other individual told themselves, I can do it. I hope I succeed. And I will get through this no matter what. Even with both of these individuals being in the exact same position, but having completely different mindsets, they are both still right. How many times have you personally heard people come up with these excuses, then turn around and said, I knew it, told you that would happen, as if they already anticipated the outcome beforehand? You know why? Because they were in fact in 100% control of their life the entire time. Whether you realize this or not, your thoughts are what manifests all that you believe into existence. Look, we may not be able to predict the future or determine our circumstances, but tough shit, that's life. We're not meant to know everything that's going on, otherwise life wouldn't be worth living, right? However, what remains in our control at all times is how we deal with each situation. Having the right attitude develops resilience to get back up and to keep pushing forward. Otherwise, you can stay on the canvas and continue moaning about life pushing you around. One thing we must all come to realize and understand, though, is that everyone has different capabilities and thresholds. What one person might find challenging, another may find easy, vice versa. Therefore, instead of just seeing things from your own perspective all the time, we need to be more open-minded, using empathy to try putting ourselves into someone else's shoes. I've left you with a few things to think about here, and I'll explain how these points affect my role as a peer mentor, friend, partner, neighbour, or even a colleague towards the end. But let's get back to the storyline. Usually people find the middle part of my journey, i.e. the involvement I had with the criminal justice system, the most interesting part. But if I start there, you won't get the full picture. So for that reason, I'm going to start from the beginning and give you a quick overview in order for you to understand properly. I've already used too much time, so I'm going to keep this really brief and just mention the key points that have had bad ripple effects on me growing up. I grew up with Bangladeshi traditional parents who had this old school mentality, hence why they never fully understood the importance of communication. All throughout my childhood, my father neglected me. Now, it's one thing putting food on the table, a roof over my head, and paying the bills. That's every man's responsibility as a father, right? But having a relationship with your child is a completely different matter. I'm sure most of you will appreciate that every child needs the right sort of attention, education, security, and love. We don't need social services to tell us that. This is what makes the difference between being a father and being a dad. For me, I got beaten the crap out of, whipped up, put in a deep chest freezer, drowned in the bath. But why didn't anyone help? Honestly speaking, my siblings were useless. Nobody could step up to my dad. What he said in the house was law. But you know, the physical pain wasn't my concern. It was my mental health. Sadly, the elder generations in our culture, they do not take mental health very seriously. Henceforth, this became the evolution of a psychological prison in an infant's mind. In short, I didn't have the greatest relationship with my family growing up. It's crucial to acknowledge this because the teachings within any family will develop the child's character with either morals and ethics or disobedience and a lack of integrity. I've met hundreds of people so far who associate with bad company and get involved with the wrong crowds, but due to having a solid foundation at home, they know their personal limits. In my line of profession and with my first-hand experience, this is something I can say with confidence. Most adults and youngsters involved in the criminal justice system or who are having issues, with alcohol, depression, or drugs, have all had difficult upbringings. 98% of them have childhood trauma, leaving them with internal conflict and mental health conditions such as depression and anxiety. Now remember this point, please. Moving on. In my first year of high school, I was racially abused, laughed at, and regularly bullied. For months, I would hide in the school toilets when I felt like crying. Every night, I cried myself to sleep, and I lost my appetite literally every single day. Having no one I could trust and confide in made me feel so scared, alone, and broke. Eventually, when I was tired and fed up of feeling like crap, I knew I had to make a change. All the challenges that I faced at home and now school too drove me to this point where I decided that enough was enough. Based on my negative emotions, I subconsciously decided that I would cut off the bad kids that I was the bullies that I was associating with, and get stuck in with the baddest kids that I could find. Why? Because I knew that if I made friends with the geeky friends or the ones that like studying, then they couldn't protect me from the bullies. So I needed somebody who could protect me a little. I started chilling with these new friends in and out of school. I felt some other way for them and trusted them blindly, considering they were there for me in my time of despair. Wherever they went, I followed along like a little sheep. Occasionally, they went round to this man's house where they'd chill, watch movies, play video games, have a cheeky cigarette because we used to think we was hard during those days, drink alcohol on the weekends, and sometimes even order takeouts. At this point, I was only a 12-year-old boy, and I didn't have a phone back in those days. Technology wasn't trending as it is now, believe it or not. One day, I went round on my own, assuming that my other friends would be there. What happened next was very unexpected. I was sexually abused and manipulated not to say anything. This man took advantage of my vulnerability, abusing me for months on end. And shall I tell you the way he covered up his guilt? Buying me gifts, knowing the things that I wanted and I could not afford. Over the next few years, unaware of my internal turmoil, my young male ego felt like it had to prove itself. Subconsciously, I wanted to be recognized and accepted as a male. And not just any dude, but I wanted the image of an alpha male. Considering how much of my so-called free will had been taken away from me, it was understandable. Nobody understood the reasons behind my behavior. None of my teachers, family members, nor my friends. However, I knew why. Based on this reason, I misbehaved on purpose in order to gain recognition and respect amongst my peers. And I also became a young womanizer, mistreating several girls without any sort of remorse. Making bad decisions was my way of gaining praise and building a reputation amongst my peers as a dominant male. Now that I had this surge of confidence, thanks to my ego, I started disrespecting and hurting my parents at home. The trauma, frustration, and anger I sadly took out on my unconditionally loving mother just because she was an easy target. To add more fuel to the fire, my father was never going to accept the fact that I had a white girlfriend at the time. With that being said, when I was 15 years old, my dad kicked me out onto the streets, making me homeless for the first time in my life. I was put in a hostel on Daisy Bank Road, Longside, instructed to claim benefits and without question, forced to grow up. Again, I suffered in silence, alone. Whilst most of my friends were preparing for their exams, thinking about their high school crush or just enjoying themselves, this boy was paying bills, shopping, cooking, and carrying out adult responsibilities without being trained, educated, or taught how. Basically, there was this particular man in my hostel whilst I was staying there. For some reason, the way he carried himself, it just appealed to me and he seemed interested. And I'm not going to lie, from a teenage boy's perspective, he looked cool. We all had a curfew, but this guy used to come in and out at certain times. Literally last minute on the dot, he'd be arriving, and first thing in the morning, he'd be leaving. It was hard to catch him slipping. He used to wear designer brands. He didn't used to speak to the other lads or associate with them. Literally, he was the dark horse in the building, and there was just something about him. Before I'd spoken to him, I did not know that he was one of the local Longsight boys. Out of everyone though, however, he was the only individual that I wanted to associate with. And one day that opportunity came. Cut a long story short, he basically became my introduction to gang culture, drug dealing, police chases, and a lifestyle full of crime. On my 16th birthday, I was sat in a cell in Ashton Police Station, tagged up on a 7 till 7 curfew for 8 months during my 17th birthday. And my 18th and 19th birthday, Her Royal Majesty's Prison is where I celebrated those days. Okay, now I'm assuming that you'd like to hear about the 4-year custodial stretch that I was sentenced to and what it is that inspired me to change my life, right? Well, remember the story that I mentioned at the beginning where I showed you the man who I randomly attacked, Tim? Well, believe it or not, the police didn't catch us that night. The following night we was out looking for trouble again, and that's when the police caught us slipping for a different incident, which initially got us locked up. Now, whilst we was in police custody, they searched our properties and they found evidence linking back to Tim, and that's how obviously they put the cases together. There was so much to analyse and contemplate on whilst I was inside, with no distractions and nothing but time. Some simple but wonderful miracles were discovered, and I learned more about myself, I connected with myself, and I managed to change what was within. Whilst I did that, I started realising who was really there for me and who wasn't. Family were, friends all disappeared. That's how I learned about empathy. Fast forward, when I got home from pen and for some reason, because I closed off so many chapters of my previous life, there was one thing holding me back: saying sorry to Tim. So I went on my own accord and I asked my probation officer if I could meet him to say sorry, even though it wasn't even on my sentence plan. All parties eventually agreed. When the meeting took place, it was very emotional and it was life-changing, if I'm honest with you. Considering the impact that this meeting had and how powerful it was, the probation staff were inspired and they published a front cover on their magazine in 2015. This magazine got noticed by the BBC Northwest News. They made an extract on it, followed by a theatre company by the name of Crowded Room from London, who asked to use our story and our experience to make a play based on restorative justice. Since then, we have been invited to conferences and have participated in Q&A sessions at various different locations together. Not long after, but the BBC One show, they got in touch with us and they asked us if they can make a short video on our peculiar journey, which I have here with me today. I'm going to whip it on for you all now, and then I'll show you the transition I made when I got back on road, sorry.
It's taken us many years to find two people who are willing to go on camera to share both sides of the story like the one we're about to hear.
Yes, now this is what happened when Tim and Cameron's paths crossed one evening back in 2011.
My name's Tim. I'm a graphic design lecturer at the University of Salford, and I am married with 2 children.
My name's Cameron. I'm 24 years of age. I'm lucky to be getting married this year to a special young lady, hoping to open our own daycare centre one day in the future.
Back in August 2011, I'd been out after work with some friends, and I was making my way home on the train. When I dozed off, I woke up and assumed that I'd missed my stop. So in a slight panic, I got up and got off the train at the next station.
This one night, we was sat in the car. I was having an argument over text messages with my ex-girlfriend.
Made my way out of the station, up and over the bridge and down onto the platform, waiting for another train to take me home.
I couldn't handle the pressure of the argument. I seen a man walking around on his own, hovering near the train platform, and I just wanted to lash out and hurt somebody.
It was very quiet, there was nobody around.
So I reached over into the back seat and I grabbed my baseball bat. I've asked my friend to come with me, and I followed this man down the platform.
The next thing I remember was waking up on the floor, being sort of shouted at and demands being made of me.
And then I took his stuff like nothing had happened, and I drove off.
I looked down at my clothes, and my trousers and my shirt and my shoes were covered in blood, and I kind of slowly dawned on me that this whirlwind had occurred.
I used to hang around with the dodgy crowd. We drive around, beat people up for no reason. The night after we attacked the man at the station, we were out looking for trouble again. Got a little bit cocky, and a police car noticed my car and fitted the description, so they followed us. The police found the man's wallet and his house keys in my drawer. I got sentenced to a 4-year custodial sentence. I served 20 months inside, and to be honest, it's probably the best thing that could have happened to me at that time. I heard about this course called Restorative Justice, what gives you a chance to meet your victim, and I wanted to do it because I genuinely wanted to say sorry to Tim.
When I first met Cameron, one of the things we talked about was writing a letter from Cameron to Tim.
And when I finally plucked up the courage to open it and read it, it was very clear in the first 2 or 3 sentences that this was something that Cameron had written by himself and genuinely expressed his remorse.
But from the bottom of my heart, I am so sorry for the things I put you through. I don't know how else to say it, but I am sincerely and seriously sorry.
And that made it very simple for me to agree to meet Cameron. For me, it was about the opportunity to meet the person that had assaulted me and maybe understand some reasoning and what the motives were.
I didn't know how I was going to react. I don't know if he was angry with me, if he was going to attack me.
They were both given time to talk about what had happened, the impact it had had.
And I just opened up to him and told him literally my life story and what had led to that point.
I knew immediately that it wasn't a personal attack. I happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
He wished me the best of luck for the future. He told me that he wants me to make something out of my life.
Tim said to Cameron, "I'm not a religious man, but if I were, I would give you my blessing." And it just reinforces that actually doing this, you get to see the very best of human beings.
First time I've been back, actually still in the station since that night.
I still remember exactly how I was, not just like I attacked you, but the way I was as a person.
Talking to you in this environment is peculiar and is strange, but is also useful.
Yeah.
It's a way of, helping to kind of round that circle.
If I'm getting on with my family, I'm drug free, so I just wanted to say thanks to appreciate it.
I'm glad to have been a very small part in that. Strangely, a very small part in that process. The consequences of our choices sometimes last longer than we know at the time. But that, I don't think that should mean that you are bound by those choices for the rest of your life.
And a very big thank you to Tim and to Cameron for sharing what must have been just incredibly
Absolutely.
strange emotions, even to be standing there on that platform where that happened. But very
Really,
glad both.
really, yeah.
Forgiveness is an extraordinary, powerful thing. Yeah.
Look, guys, I'm not the same person as I was before. I'm a different breed of character. Therefore, coming up with excuses all the time, just like I used to before, ain't really my thing anymore. Furthermore, being brutally honest eliminates any thoughts of even trying to sugarcoat things. I'm not trying to justify my wrong actions, of course not. And I don't expect you to think better of me. All I want you to do is understand. At the end of the day, nobody wakes up in the morning and spontaneously decides that they want to go out and attack and rob people. Do you believe that anybody randomly wants to victimize innocent and vulnerable people? Do you think a child intends to grow up selling drugs, committing domestic violence, indecent acts, or even rape? Not that I did, but I'm just saying, for example, the people out there. I often say that most offenders and perpetrators were at some point a victim in their life. Yes, let me repeat that. At some point, offenders and perpetrators were at some point a victim in their life. Unfortunately, they just end up dealing with it in the wrong way. Now, just a sidetrack, I'm not going to lie, even to this day, when I hear about certain crimes taking place across the globe, it subconsciously makes my stomach turn. However, that's not what we're supposed to be doing here. If we want crime rates to reduce, if we want to see prolific offenders stop reoffending, what we need to do as a whole community is understand these people empathetically without being judgmental. This is the biggest problem in our societies today, communication. It goes for any area of life. We shouldn't be too concerned about people understanding us. It's about you understanding them. Why would you want to listen to somebody who doesn't even give you a chance to speak in return? When people feel valued, they start to appreciate you, and therefore they will listen to anything you have to say. Once you have their full attention, that's when giving the right advice and tips to change their life is most effective. So remember, don't be too quick to judge without reading the whole book. You don't have a clue what people are going through. My experience and lifestyle in prison is a big chapter in itself. For that reason, I'm going to leave it out. But if anyone's got any questions, feel free to ask me at the end, or alternatively, you can obviously read the whole details and everything that I've mentioned in quite some depth once my book is published. If there's anything specific you would like to know privately, please feel free to get in touch with me and I'll be more than happy to help out. Okay, well, when I was released, I faced all kinds of challenges being a reformed man. Employment was my biggest one. A 7-year criminal record hindered me, and it really restricted my chances of securing a decent job that I was more than capable of doing. With my hand on my heart, I can confidently say that I've been rejected over 100 times, and there was a period where I wasn't working or claiming any sort of benefits for almost 8 months, and to be honest, I was straight up broke. Approximately after the first 20 or 30 rejections, I felt like throwing in the towel. Some of my old associates and certain links, shall I say, that I made inside were selling X amount of drugs, driving flashy cars and wearing clothes that I couldn't even pronounce, and they was offering me a lucrative position. I was tempted. I was so tempted, I'm not going to lie. However, whilst one part of my brain desperately wanted to join in, deep down in my heart, I knew going backwards, back to a chaotic lifestyle which I left behind in a 6x4 cell, was not for me anymore. Barely keeping my head above the water, I persisted and continued applying for more jobs. At one stage, my head fell off, which triggered my depression and suicidal tendencies. When I went to the hospital, I seen a psychiatrist from the raid team. She was extremely open-minded, hence why she was able to support and uncover a lot of shit which I wasn't even aware of. I realized something. All the pain and trauma that I had been through from when I was a kid, I never confronted and accepted them. I used to sugarcoat it, or I used to brush it under the carpet. I just never wanted to face the pain that I'd been through. And based on that, I was holding on to the past and did not have the courage to let go and move on. I always bottled everything up with either alcohol or drugs. Henceforth, when my lid finally popped off, the repercussions were severe. But the fight wasn't over. I'd survived up until this point, so I knew I had the strength and resilience to keep pushing on. After some time, I got myself a job in a factory as a labourer. Now, within the 2 years of me being there, my accomplishments were unexpected. From the bottom of the ladder, I worked my way up to a coordinator, supervisor, then eventually the department's manager. But that wasn't my biggest highlight during the time I worked for the company. One of the 4 directors mentored and coached me on a personal level. He taught me some extremely valuable lessons, which not only benefited my professional life, but also my personal life. These lessons have become pillars for me, and I try to implement them daily. When this department sadly went under and closed down, I was back to square one. Only this time round, I started doing my volunteering as a peer mentor. I loved every moment of it. But my family and friends, they never understood why I was volunteering and doing something for free. And at the time, they mocked and criticized me, telling me to get a real job that pays. However, my passion was more important to me, and it certainly had its advantages. After a few months, I was offered a full-time paid position which I eagerly accepted. And it hadn't even been a year when a promotion was also offered. Can you believe that? What a turnaround, right? See, I've had that many jobs in the past that I can't even list them on my CV anymore. I'll be honest with you, employers will probably get scared. But one thing I've learned is going to a job for the sake of money or studying a course for any other reason apart from passion will one day start affecting you. There will be days when you simply can't be arsed going in. Days where you drag your heels, and other times where you have such crappy and long days and long hours that you just feel like quitting. On the other hand, if it's something you are passionate about, the money is irrelevant. Even if you are dying in bed, you will still want to go work because you just love what you do. So find what you're passionate about first. Trust me, the money will come following you after. Now look here, there's 3 things I usually don't tell people. My income, my personal love life, and my next moves, i.e. future plans. However, there's one thing which is necessary for me to share, considering it's almost complete, and it will hopefully benefit others. I've been writing my first book, which I've called The Battle of the Minds. See, I have this theory where I believe that everyone in the entire world has 2 versions of themselves, a good one and a bad one. It'll take too long trying to explain it now, but let me summarize it. We all have positive and negative thoughts, right? Science tells us that every single human being on the planet averages between 60,000 to 70,000 thoughts per day. My question to you is, how many of them are you monitoring? I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't even be able to write down 1,000 thoughts alone that I've had today. So what I've tried to emphasize throughout my book is the importance of getting to know ourselves on a deeper level, because the more we learn to control our actions instead of making irrational decisions based on how we feel, the more conscious, aware, and present we become in each moment. To make it interesting, I've used my own life story as an example to show you how the theory works and the extent things can go to when we make subconscious decisions. The manuscript is still being edited, but hopefully it should be completed soon. I've got a contract already in line with Author House, which hopefully will be getting complete by the end of this year. If anyone's interested, I'd obviously put a tag or something for you to go on my website, or if you're here with me in person, I can give you a leaflet. Now, just to finish off, what I'd like to remind you guys is change does not happen in an instant, and it does not happen overnight. Sometimes it takes a while, especially for those individuals out there who have had difficult upbringings or who have faced traumatic experiences. Bear in mind that some of the wealthiest and most successful people in the world are the ones who have the darkest past. So if they can persist and get through their struggles, why can't anybody else? As a peer mentor, as a good sibling, a parent, a decent neighbor, a partner, or even a friend, we all need to be aware of this. Open your heart, broaden your mind, and be empathetic towards others. Be patient with each person you talk to or work with. And don't be too eager, to judge people. Rather, give them the opportunity to open up so that you can understand them first. For some people, you will be their hope, their guidance, the light at the end of a very dark tunnel. But no matter what, don't ever give up on them. You might not realize it, but your presence in their life alone will be a massive difference. I want to quote Tupac before I finish off. He said, "After every dark night, there is a brighter day." I rest my case. Thank you all truly for your time. Does anybody have any questions? If so, please leave your comments below. Thank you.